There's a quiet kind of failure most men never notice. It doesn't happen through scandal. It doesn't happen through some public mistake. It happens slowly, almost invisibly, until one day you realize people don't listen when you speak. They don't pause when you enter. They don't take you seriously anymore. And the truth is, it wasn't stolen from you. It was surrendered in tiny ways, through habits you never thought twice about. Every forced laugh, every needless apology, every moment you filled silence because you couldn't bear the weight of it. Those small cracks burned through your presence and tore at your authority. The Stoics warned us of this subtle erosion. Stop chasing validation. Stop explaining. Stop begging to be understood. Respect isn't lost in one blow. It bleeds out through your choices. And if you don't confront these truths, you risk becoming invisible in your own life. If you're here, it's because you know something deeper is possible. Also consider subscribing. It means aligning yourself with a journey toward discipline, clarity, and inner strength. Think of it as a step into Stoic practice, a commitment to shaping a life where your silence carries weight and your presence commands respect. 1. Talking more than you do. Most people don't realize how quickly their words lose value. We've all had that moment where we excitedly tell a friend about a project we're planning, a business we want to start, or a change we're about to make in our lives. At first, it feels good. Talking about your plans gives you a little rush, a spark of motivation, almost like you've already achieved it. But over time, if those words never transform into action, people around you start to notice. They might not say it out loud, but they begin to think, "He talks a lot, but nothing ever happens." Slowly, without you realizing, their trust in your word erodes. And once your word loses weight, rebuilding respect becomes an uphill battle. Think about how people respond when they see someone who works in silence and then suddenly delivers results. It catches attention because it breaks expectation. You weren't busy seeking validation or explaining what you were about to do. You were focused on the work. That element of surprise creates impact. Epictetus put it clearly, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." The same applies to your life. Don't explain your goals. Don't hype your future. Build in silence and let your results do the explaining. Words may impress for a moment, but actions define you for a lifetime. Psychologically, speaking too much about your plans can trick your brain into believing you've already accomplished something. Carl Jung noted that, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." When you share your plans over and over without moving on them, you give yourself the illusion of progress while standing still. You feel a temporary sense of pride just by announcing, but the reality is nothing has changed. Meanwhile, the people listening silently downgrade their estimation of you. They start to think of you as someone who dreams big but never follows through. Now imagine the opposite. Someone who rarely says a word about their goals, but when you look up months later, you see evidence everywhere. Health improved, skills sharpened, projects completed. That kind of person doesn't have to ask for respect. Their presence commands it naturally. Seneca said, "Well-being is attained by little, and nevertheless is no little thing itself." Small actions stacked consistently build a foundation others can't ignore. It's not about talking yourself up. It's about moving steadily until the results are undeniable. It's also worth noting that constantly announcing your intentions creates a kind of pressure you might not be ready for. Every time you tell someone, you create an expectation in their mind. That expectation becomes a silent deadline. If you don't deliver, the gap between what you promised and what you produced burns your credibility. And in relationships, at work, or even in casual friendships, credibility is everything. People may like you for your words, but they only respect you for your actions. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Repeating empty words creates a habit of being overlooked. Repeating actions builds a habit of being respected. There's also a deeper lesson from Stoicism here. Control what you can control. You can't control how others perceive your promises, but you can control whether you deliver. The Stoics would argue that speaking about the future is dangerous because the future is uncertain. You might fail, you might change paths, or circumstances might shift. By announcing too early, you tie your reputation to something you haven't yet mastered. Better to let your actions unfold, and only when they've solidified into reality should they be shared. That's not secrecy, it's discipline. Picture yourself at a dinner with friends. Someone asks what you've been working on, and instead of launching into a speech about plans, you smile and say, "You'll see soon." That creates intrigue. It signals confidence. People start to wonder, what is he up to? And when you finally reveal results, the impact is 10 times greater. Compare that to saying, "I'm planning to start a business," month after month, only to have nothing to show. The first path builds respect quietly. The second drains it publicly. Socrates once said, "The way to gain a good reputation is to endeavor to be what you desire to appear." That's the whole truth here. You don't gain respect by painting pictures with your words. You gain it by becoming the picture others can't ignore. Think about the people you admire. It's not because they talked endlessly about what they do. It's because they lived it, consistently, until their actions spoke louder than their voices ever could. So if you want to rebuild or protect your respect, start here. Talk less, act more. Cut down the habit of announcing every new project. Hold back from over-explaining your future. Let people witness your progress rather than hear about your intentions. When you do this, something subtle shifts. Your words become rare, and rare things carry weight. Your silence becomes valuable, and valuable things create respect. Respect doesn't come from making promises. It comes from keeping them. It doesn't come from being loud about your plans. It comes from being steady in your actions. Stop giving people reasons to doubt you by oversharing. Instead, create moments where your actions leave them no choice but to acknowledge the progress in front of their eyes. If you take nothing else from this, remember this: every word you speak about your future without backing it up is a withdrawal from the respect you hold. Every action you take without announcement is a deposit. Over time, those deposits compound, and respect grows quietly until it surrounds you like armor. That's the Stoic way: calm, deliberate, disciplined, and undeniable. 2. Over-explaining yourself. There's a certain kind of pressure that almost everyone has felt at some point. You say something in a group, someone raises an eyebrow, maybe they misunderstand, and instantly you feel the urge to jump in with, "Wait, let me explain." You scramble to clarify, to smooth things over, to make sure nobody gets the wrong impression. But here's the problem. When you rush to explain yourself, you're not actually strengthening your position. You're weakening it, because every time you feel the need to justify what you've said or done, you send a silent message to everyone watching. I don't trust my own actions to speak for themselves. That subtle energy shift changes the way people see you. They don't see confidence, they see doubt. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." When you over-explain, you give power to opinions that don't even matter. Think about the people you naturally respect. They don't argue with every misinterpretation. They don't rush to clarify when someone misunderstands them. They stand still, calm, grounded, knowing that time and results will correct perception. The Stoics believed in this kind of restraint. Epictetus taught, "If you are ever tempted to look for outside approval, Realize you have compromised your integrity. If you need a witness, be your own. That's what over-explaining really is. It's searching for witnesses, begging others to validate you in real time. But when you stop explaining every move, you take back your power. You tell the world, without words, I know who I am. You'll figure it out eventually. Carl Jung went even deeper when he said, a man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. Over-explaining often comes from the inferno of insecurity burning inside, from a need to control how others see you. But the more you try to control perception, the less control you actually have. When you explain too much, you don't sound more intelligent. You sound unsettled. Jung would argue that strength comes not from convincing others, but from mastering the emotions that drive that compulsion. The moment you accept that not everyone will see you clearly, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of explanation. Respect grows in silence. Imagine this scenario. Someone takes a jab at you in a meeting, twisting your words. You could leap in saying, "That's not what I meant, let me explain." But if you pause, stay composed, and move on without defending yourself, the room feels it. People begin to wonder, why didn't he react? Why didn't he fight to be understood? That mystery creates weight. Seneca once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Over-explaining is craving. Craving to be understood, craving for approval, craving for control. When you no longer crave, you appear rich in self-possession. And that's exactly what commands respect. This doesn't mean you should never clarify anything. Of course, in relationships or work, there are times when explanation is necessary. But the key is discernment. If every small misunderstanding makes you jump, you train people to see you as easily moved. If instead, you choose carefully when to explain and when to let silence do the talking, you become unpredictable, and unpredictability builds intrigue. Another problem with over-explaining is that it dilutes your message. Think about a time when someone kept adding more and more words to defend a simple point. Did it make their idea stronger, or did it make them look uncertain? Often, the more we explain, the more confused the listener becomes. Words pile up, and the core truth gets lost. Aristotle's wisdom still applies here. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. A confident person recognizes that not every thought needs to be dissected. Not every action needs justification. Sometimes the strongest message is the shortest one. And here's something powerful. When you stop explaining yourself, you force others to sit with their own interpretation. That pause, that lack of reaction, makes them reflect. Maybe they misunderstood. Maybe they judged too quickly. Your silence becomes a mirror in which they see their own assumptions, and in that space, respect grows. Epictetus would call this self-control in practice, the art of letting others wrestle with their own thoughts while you remain unmoved. Let's put this into a real example. Imagine you're at work, you present an idea, and someone says, "I don't think that makes sense." Instead of rushing into a long defense, you nod once and say, "Time will show if it works." That's it. Short, clean, steady. You've not only kept your dignity, you've planted curiosity. Now others are watching to see if your results will prove you right. Plato put it simply, "Wise men speak because they have something to say. Fools because they have to say something." Over-explaining turns you into the latter. Silence, on the other hand, positions you as the former. Respect doesn't come from being perfectly understood. It comes from being consistent, composed, and grounded whether people get you or not. And here's the paradox. The less you explain, the more people lean in to understand you. Mystery creates gravity. Think of the leaders, teachers, or mentors you've admired. It wasn't that they clarified every detail, it was that they carried a presence that made you want to understand them better. Their restraint made their words rare, and rare words carry weight. So next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, stop, breathe. Ask yourself, does this moment really require my words, or is my silence stronger? As Seneca said, silence is a lesson learned from the many sufferings of life. Don't fear being misunderstood. Fear wasting your energy on battles that don't matter. Because when you stop over-explaining, you stop giving away your authority. You stand firm, steady, and untouchable. Not because you forced people to see you clearly, but because you refused to beg for clarity. Respect isn't built on explanations. It's built on presence. And when your presence speaks louder than your words, you'll find people don't just listen to you, they take you seriously. That's the quiet strength the Stoics lived by, and that's the strength you can carry today. 3. Laughing too easily. There's a strange thing about respect. It's often measured in what you don't do rather than what you do. Most people assume that if they're friendly, agreeable, and always laughing along, they'll naturally be liked and respected. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Too much eagerness to show approval has the opposite effect. It chips away at your presence. When you laugh at every little joke, when you smile constantly just to fill the space, people stop seeing you as strong and start seeing you as someone desperate to fit in. It's not about shutting yourself off from joy. It's about realizing that the weight of your reaction is directly tied to how rarely you give it away. Think back to times when someone told a joke that wasn't really funny. Maybe it was cheap. Maybe it was even aimed at you. Did you still force out a laugh? Most of us have done it because it feels easier to play along than to risk standing out. But each time you do this, you're sending a silent signal. Your approval matters more than my authenticity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. In this context, the best response to a disrespectful joke is not to mirror it with laughter, but to remain calm and steady. By not rewarding behavior that lowers the tone, you subtly raise the standard of how others treat you. The Stoics placed immense value on control, especially control over your emotional expressions. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The same principle applies in group settings. The way you react to words, gestures, and jokes shapes how others perceive your character. If you're quick to smile, nod, or chuckle at everything, you look less like a person in control of himself and more like someone eager to be accepted. And eagerness doesn't command respect. It invites dismissal. Carl Jung offered a psychological layer to this when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." When you laugh just to blend in, you're not being who you truly are. You're performing. That performance may win short-term approval, but it costs you long-term respect. People can sense when your reactions are genuine and when they're just social filler. And while they might not call you out, they adjust their perception of you quietly, treating you as less of a leader and more of a follower. Now, think about those people who don't laugh easily. They might smile occasionally, chuckle when something is truly funny, but they don't waste their reactions. Notice how much weight those small expressions carry. When they laugh, the room pays attention. When they smile, it feels earned. That's because scarcity creates value. Seneca captured this idea perfectly. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. In the same way, it's not that we have too little energy to show, but that we waste it on things that don't deserve it. And wasted energy weakens presence. This doesn't mean you should be cold or joyless. It means you should be intentional. If every word out of your mouth is a laugh, then laughter loses its meaning. If every reaction is automatic, People stop paying attention to your reactions at all. But when you choose your responses carefully, you build an aura of depth. People start to wonder what's going on behind your calm exterior. They project mystery onto you. And mystery in any social dynamic is powerful. Socrates once said, "The easiest and noblest way is not to be crushing others, but to be improving yourself." Improving yourself includes mastering the urge to seek approval through constant smiles and laughter. Imagine you're at a gathering and someone tells a weak joke that makes others laugh. Instead of forcing yourself to join in, you simply hold a neutral face, maybe a polite smile at most, nothing more. Instantly you stand out, not as unfriendly, but as someone who doesn't give approval cheaply. People notice. Some may even respect you more because you've silently communicated that your reactions can't be bought with mediocrity. Over time, this self-control builds a powerful presence. People begin to think twice before using cheap humor around you, especially at your expense. They start to recognize that your attention and your reactions are valuable, and valuable things aren't given away freely. Epictetus again reminds us, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Mastering your expressions is one of the most subtle but impactful ways to build freedom from social manipulation. You're no longer controlled by the pressure to fit in. You control how and when you engage. Plato once said, "The measure of a man is what he does with power." In this case, your power lies in restraint. By laughing less, you give your reactions more force. By smiling selectively, you add weight to your presence. This doesn't push people away, it draws them in, because they start to value the moments when you do react. And the more intentional you are, the more your presence feels solid, reliable, and worthy of respect. So, what's the takeaway here? Stop trading respect for cheap approval. Don't waste your energy proving you're easygoing by laughing at things that don't deserve it. Instead, let your laughter be rare. Let your smiles be genuine. When you do this, people begin to respect your presence without you ever having to demand it. Respect doesn't come from trying to please everyone in the room. It comes from showing that you value yourself enough to be authentic, even if that means standing apart. Respect is never built by blending in, it's built by standing firm. And when your reactions are controlled, deliberate and true, people don't just notice you, they take you seriously. 4. Apologizing for no reason. Most people don't realize how often the word sorry slips out of their mouths. It becomes automatic, almost like a nervous reflex. You bump into someone by accident, sorry. You ask a simple question at work, sorry. You arrive 2 minutes late, sorry again. At first glance, it seems polite, even considerate. But here's the subtle truth. When sorry becomes your default response, you begin to condition others to see you as lower in the social hierarchy. Every unnecessary apology places you beneath the other person, as though you need their permission to exist, to speak, or to take up space. Respect doesn't grow in that soil, it fades. The Stoics would see over-apologizing as a symptom of misplaced focus. Instead of anchoring yourself in what you can control, your actions, you become overly concerned with how others might perceive you. When you constantly apologize for minor things, you're arguing with yourself about your worth instead of simply embodying it. A person who carries themselves with steadiness doesn't have to beg for acceptance. They live in a way that makes their value obvious. There is a difference between genuine accountability and compulsive apologizing. When you make a real mistake, when your actions genuinely cause harm, a clear apology is powerful. It restores balance and shows integrity. But when sorry becomes a filler word for being slightly late, asking a question, or simply taking initiative, it signals insecurity rather than strength. Epictetus taught, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. What he meant was that your focus should be on growth, not constant approval. By over-apologizing, you prove that you're terrified of even small misunderstandings. Yet growth requires being okay with not always being seen as perfect. Carl Jung shed light on this from a psychological angle when he said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Many people over-apologize because they haven't accepted themselves. They feel guilty simply for existing in the space, for speaking up, for being noticed. The apology becomes a shield, a way to soften their presence. But when you accept yourself fully, you realize you don't need to shrink. You don't need to preface your thoughts with sorry. You can stand in the room as you are, without justifying or diminishing yourself. Over-apologizing also changes the way others treat you. Think of someone who starts every sentence with sorry. Do you see them as confident, or do you instinctively see them as someone who doubts themselves? Respect flows toward people who stand firm, not toward those who continually lower their posture. So, how do you change this habit? One simple but powerful trick is to replace sorry with thank you. Instead of saying, "Sorry, I'm late," say, "Thanks for waiting." Instead of, "Sorry for bothering you," say, "Thank you for your time." That small shift changes the energy entirely. You move from self-deprecation to appreciation. You stop lowering yourself and instead show gratitude, which commands respect rather than drains it. Socrates once said, "Regard your good name as the richest jewel you can possibly be possessed of." Every unnecessary sorry scratches away at that jewel, while every thoughtful thank you polishes it. Picture yourself in a professional setting. You've been working hard, but you need to ask your boss a question. If you start with, "Sorry to interrupt," you frame yourself as a burden. But if you begin with, "Thanks for giving me a moment," you shift the tone to one of mutual respect. One diminishes your presence, the other elevates it. Of course, the modern world makes it easy to fall into the habit. Emails, texts, meetings, all full of opportunities to apologize unnecessarily. But every time you write, "Sorry for the delay," when the delay was minor, or "Sorry if that's a dumb question," you quietly erode your own credibility. Instead, you can acknowledge without surrendering. "Thank you for your patience. I appreciate your perspective." These phrases communicate awareness without self-devaluation. The deeper truth is that respect lives in balance. Too much pride without humility makes you arrogant. Too much apology without confidence makes you small. The Stoics always searched for the middle path, the place where your words match your actions and your posture matches your inner steadiness. Plato put it simply, "The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself." Conquering yourself includes conquering the reflex to apologize for things that don't require forgiveness. Here's the reality. You don't owe the world constant sorries. You owe it your presence, your effort, your authenticity. Apologize when it matters. Mean it when you say it. But don't hand out apologies like loose change. It makes them worthless. Keep them for the moments that demand integrity, and they'll carry far greater weight. And in the spaces where you once said sorry, replace it with gratitude, with confidence, with the quiet certainty that you have every right to stand where you stand. Respect doesn't come from being the most agreeable person in the room. It comes from being steady enough to know your value without announcing it, and strong enough to correct your mistakes without groveling. When you live this way, you no longer shrink yourself with needless apologies. You expand yourself through presence, gratitude, and dignity. And people, without even realizing it, will start to treat you differently. They'll listen closer. They'll respect your word. They'll feel the weight of your presence. 5. Filling every silence. There's something about silence that makes people uncomfortable. Think about it. When a pause stretches in a conversation, most people feel an almost physical urge to jump in, to say something, anything, just to break the tension. We've all been there, filling the space with nervous chatter or meaningless words because the quiet felt too heavy. But here's the truth. The person who can hold silence without flinching is the one who carries real authority. When you collapse into words too quickly, you hand away your power. When you sit calmly in the pause, you take it back. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that external events only matter as much as our minds allow them to. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Silence is one of those outside events that feels threatening, but it's really just a space. When you rush to fill it, you're letting the discomfort control you. When you hold it, you're proving that your mind, not your nerves, is in charge. That's what people respect. The quiet steadiness that doesn't need to be rescued by noise. Now picture a meeting. Someone challenges your idea. A pause follows. If you immediately rush to defend yourself, to smooth things over, you show insecurity. But if you wait, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, something changes. Everyone else feels the weight of that silence, and in that weight, they look at you differently. They sense confidence, they sense control. Epictetus put it simply, if you want to be in control of your life, control your mouth. Control over your tongue, especially in moments of silence, sets the tone for how others respond to you. Carl Jung added another layer to this. He said, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." Silence feels like chaos at first, like something gone wrong. But if you trust it, silence reveals order. It shows you who's nervous, who's impatient, who can't bear the tension. While everyone else scrambles to fill the void, your calm becomes magnetic. People project depth onto you, assuming you know more than you've said. In truth, you might just be sitting still, but your restraint creates the illusion of wisdom and authority. Seneca also spoke about this idea of restraint when he said, "It is quality rather than quantity that matters." The same principle applies to your words. If you speak constantly just to break silence, your words lose weight. But if you speak less and let silence do some of the talking, every word you eventually choose carries more value. Silence sharpens your presence the way stillness sharpens a blade. Of course, silence isn't always easy. Our culture prizes quick replies, constant communication, instant reactions. Pausing feels risky. What if people think you don't know what to say? What if they assume you're weak? But here's the paradox. The person who can pause without fear is seen as the strongest in the room. Socrates once said, "The beginning of wisdom is the definition of terms." By holding silence, you're redefining the terms of the conversation. You're showing that you don't play by the rules of urgency and insecurity. You operate at your own tempo, and that tempo becomes the one others have to adjust to. Think of silence as a tool rather than a threat. In an argument, it can diffuse escalation. When someone insults you, silence can feel like a thunderclap, heavier than any comeback. In negotiations, silence forces the other side to reveal more than they intended, because most people can't sit with the pressure. There's also a personal benefit. Silence allows you to think. When you resist the urge to fill every gap, you give yourself space to process, to reflect, to choose your words carefully. Aristotle believed, "Patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet." The patience to hold silence is bitter at first. It feels uncomfortable, unnatural. But the fruit is sweet, because when you finally do speak, your words land with clarity and force. You sound less reactive and more deliberate, and people naturally respect that difference. Let's ground this in an example. Imagine you're at a dinner table and someone makes a subtle dig at you. The usual instinct is to laugh it off, explain yourself, or shoot back quickly. But if you simply look at them, hold eye contact, and let the silence stretch, the effect is powerful. They feel the tension, not you. The whole table feels it. And suddenly, the respect shifts. You didn't argue. You didn't fight. You just let silence work for you. That restraint makes you untouchable. Seneca once reminded us, as long as you live, keep learning how to live. Silence is one of those lessons that keeps teaching. Every time you resist the urge to fill it, you learn a little more about your own strength. You realize you don't have to chase approval with constant words. You don't have to prove you're comfortable by speaking. You can simply be. And in that stillness, people start to bend around your presence rather than you bending around theirs. 6. Reacting to small disrespect. It's easy to spot big moments of disrespect, an argument, a direct insult, or someone trying to embarrass you in front of others. But the truth is, the respect you hold in people's eyes usually doesn't crumble in those big moments. It slips away in the small ones, the quiet smirk, the eye roll, the sarcastic side comment. These little things test you, and how you respond to them tells everyone in the room who you really are. If your face gives it away, if you react quickly or defensively, you show the world that you can be moved by the smallest push. And once people know that, they'll keep testing you. Reacting to every little jab is like giving away pieces of yourself for free. You don't need to fight small battles to prove your strength. Real strength is proven in the ability to stay steady when others are trying to shake you. Think of someone you respect deeply. Is it the person who jumps at every comment, who always has to fire back, who looks rattled at the first sign of challenge? Or is it the person who sits quietly, unbothered, making others second-guess themselves? Epictetus said, "Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. He can anger you only when you permit yourself to be disturbed by him." The moment you react to every disrespect, you've given control away, but when you stand steady, you remain your own master. Carl Jung offered another perspective when he said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Sometimes the small disrespect we react to so strongly touches on something inside us, an insecurity, a wound, or a fear. If you flinch when someone mocks your intelligence, maybe it's because you secretly doubt it yourself. If you bristle at a joke about your appearance, maybe it's because that insecurity has been with you for years. Jung's insight reminds us that the problem isn't the small disrespect itself, it's how much of ourselves we've left unguarded. Mastering that inner ground makes you far less reactive in the outer world. Seneca also warned against giving away too much emotional energy to others. He wrote, "How much better to heal than seek revenge from injury. Vengeance wastes a lot of time and throws us away from our purpose." In modern life, vengeance doesn't always look like a duel or a battle. Sometimes it's that sharp comeback you craft to prove someone wrong. Sometimes it's the raised eyebrow or the defensive explanation. But all of it drains time and focus from what truly matters. Every moment you spend trying to defend yourself against small slights is a moment stolen from your purpose. Now picture this. You're in a group and someone makes a subtle dig at you. Everyone watches, waiting for your reaction. If you laugh nervously or snap back, you've given them proof that they touched a nerve. But if you hold still, glance once, and let the silence settle without flinching, you've shifted the energy. You've shown that you can't be baited by small things. Socrates once said, "When the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser." Most disrespect is just slander in disguise, weak attempts to gain power when no real argument exists. Why give those attempts the dignity of a reaction? There's a unique kind of authority that comes from being calm under pressure. Aristotle described it well. The greatest victory is to conquer yourself. That's what staying unmoved really is. It's self-conquest. Not letting your face twitch, not rushing to defend, not wasting your voice on things that don't matter. Conquer yourself, and no one else can conquer you. This doesn't mean you should accept genuine abuse or let people walk all over you. It means you need to know the difference between what deserves your energy and what doesn't. True disrespect, the kind that threatens your integrity or well-being, should be addressed clearly and firmly. But the small, passing gestures, they're not worth your peace. Imagine yourself as a rock in a rushing river. The water crashes, splashes, and pulls at every angle. The weaker stones get carried away, but the rock that stands firm becomes the one the river has to bend around. That's how your presence should feel in the face of small disrespect. Unmoved, grounded, steady. People eventually stop trying to shake what they can't move. Seneca's reminder echoes here. A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Those small disrespects, as annoying as they are trials. They polish you. They test whether your composure is real or just for show. Each time you stay calm, you grow sharper, harder to rattle, and the more unmoved you become, the more respect naturally flows toward you. So, the next time someone tries to get under your skin with a roll of the eyes, a smirk, or a passing jab, pause. Don't let your face twitch. Don't rush to prove yourself. Stand steady, because the moment you stop reacting to small disrespect is the moment people realize they can't move you. And nothing commands respect more than a presence that remains calm while everything else tries to shake it. 7. Repeating yourself after being ignored. There are few feelings more uncomfortable than speaking up in a group and being met with silence. You share an idea, make a comment, or offer a perspective, and no one reacts. No nods, no questions, not even disagreement. Just silence. In that moment, most people panic. They think, maybe I wasn't clear, or maybe they didn't hear me. So they do what feels natural. They repeat themselves, louder or in a slightly different way, hoping this time the words will land. But here's the hidden danger. Repeating yourself doesn't make your words stronger. It makes them weaker. It signals to everyone that you're chasing their attention instead of commanding it. The Stoics would tell us that true confidence is never in pursuit. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence." The same can be said about indifference. If people don't react the way you expect, silence is the strongest response you can give. When you sit with that moment without flinching, you show that your words carry weight, whether they're acknowledged or not. By repeating yourself, you teach people that your words don't stand on their own. By holding still, you teach them to reflect on what they missed. Think of the people you naturally respect. They don't explain themselves twice. They don't rush to fill the air with more words. They say what needs to be said, then they stop. That pause creates pressure, and pressure commands attention. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to be a writer, write." In the same way, if you wish to be respected when you speak, speak once, and let your words stand. Adding more doesn't strengthen your point, it dilutes it. If your actions and presence carry weight, your words will follow naturally. People will pay attention, not because you forced them to listen, but because they've learned your words are always backed by substance. When you repeat yourself out of fear of being ignored, you signal that your actions may not be strong enough to carry your words. That's when respect slips quietly through your fingers. Seneca gave advice that feels perfectly suited for moments like this. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. When your comment is ignored, the mind invents a story. They must think I'm stupid. I need to say it again so they don't overlook me. But often the silence wasn't about you at all. Maybe people were distracted, maybe they were processing, maybe it just wasn't the right moment. The suffering comes not from their silence, but from your reaction to it. By repeating yourself, you give life to the fear that wasn't even real. Now imagine a different scenario. You say something in a meeting and it doesn't get a response. Instead of repeating, you stay calm. You sip your water. You let the silence hang for a moment. Suddenly, someone else starts to think about what you said. Maybe they circle back to it later, or maybe they don't. But either way, you haven't lowered your presence by chasing acknowledgement. There's also a strategic advantage in letting your words linger without repeating them. People begin to realize that if they don't pay attention the first time, they may not get a second chance. That scarcity gives your voice value. Think of it this way. If someone hands you a precious object, they don't throw it at you again if you drop it. They let you feel the weight of what you missed. Your words should work the same way. Say them once with conviction. If they're ignored, let the silence be the consequence. In time, people will lean in more carefully because they know you don't hand out your words cheaply. Being ignored is friction. It stings. But it's also a trial that sharpens you. Every time you resist the urge to repeat yourself, you grow stronger. You learn to rely not on constant talking, but on the strength of your presence and the quality of your words. 8. Seeking eye contact for validation. There's a subtle habit that almost everyone falls into without realizing it. You're in the middle of a conversation, maybe explaining an idea or sharing your thoughts, and instead of standing firm in your words, your eyes begin to wander. You scan the faces around you, searching for approval, a smile, a nod, a sign that they agree. On the surface, it feels like connection, but beneath it, the message is different. What you're really saying is, I need you to tell me this is okay. I need you to confirm my place here, and the moment people sense that, the respect you hope to earn begins to slip away. The Stoics would call this a failure of self-sufficiency. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." Every time you search the room for validation with your eyes, you're proving that the opinions of others weigh more heavily than your own judgment. Respect doesn't come from chasing approval. It comes from standing firm in your own convictions, even when no one acknowledges them in the moment. Think about the people you've admired, leaders, teachers, mentors. Did they constantly check the room for signs of approval? Or did they speak with a calm certainty, as though what they said was valuable regardless of who nodded along? If you haven't fully accepted yourself, you look outward for clues that you're doing fine. You seek comfort in the approval of others, because standing fully in your own skin feels frightening. But once you accept yourself, your gaze no longer wanders anxiously. Instead, you choose carefully when and where to give your attention. And the paradox is that when you stop seeking eyes, others start seeking yours. The brave man speaks his truth and lets it stand, whether the room applauds, stays silent, or even disagrees. When your words flow from conviction rather than from a hunger for reassurance, you shift from follower to leader. Respect isn't given to the one scanning faces nervously. It's given to the one who makes others nervous, wondering if they'll receive his attention. Picture this. You're speaking in a group, and instead of darting your eyes around, you hold your gaze steady, maybe on one person, maybe into the middle distance, but you don't chase reactions. The energy in the room changes. People start leaning in, wondering what's behind your composure. They realize you're not desperate for their approval. You're offering your words as they are, and whether or not they acknowledge them, you remain unshaken. That composure makes your presence feel heavier, more significant. Socrates once said, "Know thyself." When you constantly seek eye contact for reassurance, it's a sign you don't yet know your own strength. You're measuring yourself by how others look at you rather than by your own inner compass. But when you ground yourself in self-knowledge, you no longer need to chase their gaze. You become the one whose eyes people want to meet, because meeting your gaze feels like receiving acknowledgement, not giving it. Aristotle offered a reminder that ties perfectly here. Dignity does not consist in possessing honors, but in deserving them. Your dignity is not in how many people nod along while you talk. It's in the weight of your words, the steadiness of your delivery, the fact that you don't beg for confirmation. When you act as though your presence deserves respect, others begin to treat it that way. Let's make it practical. The next time you catch yourself scanning for approval, stop, anchor yourself, take a breath, slow down, and remind yourself that your value isn't measured by every expression you see. Instead, choose deliberately where to look. Maybe you focus calmly on one person. Maybe you pause and glance away, but whatever you do, do it with intention, not neediness. Over time, this shift changes how people experience you. Instead of being the one searching for validation, you become the one whose validation others crave. People start to adjust their behavior, hoping to catch your attention, hoping to earn your eye contact. That's the quiet reversal. When you stop begging with your eyes, you gain power without saying a word. Respect isn't something you demand, it's something you quietly install through presence, discipline, and restraint. The moment you stop chasing approval and start living by principle, the world begins to shift around you. People may not say it out loud, but they feel it. Your silence becomes heavy, your words become rare, and your presence unmistakable. If this spoke to something in you, watch the next video on your screen. It's the next step in sharpening the kind of mind that doesn't bend under pressure. And thank you, truly, for being a part of Stoic Journal, where strength is built from within.